The public uproar over convicted child killer Terri-Lynne McClintock's transfer to an Indigenous healing lodge prompted the federal government to make changes to rules that govern these kinds of transfers. McClintock is now back behind a traditional set of bars in Edmonton, in a traditional jail. But the high-profile case prompted the family of one murder victim to make inquiries of their own. The CBC's Colin Butler joins me now with more on this story. Hey, Colin, thanks for being with us. Really appreciate it. Who is this family and what are they telling you?
Well, these are the Kramers, and what they're saying is that Christopher Cowell, the man who killed his estranged wife, Shelley Cowell, basically ended up outside of maximum security within a couple years of him being sentenced. This crime happened on May 17th, 2001. The couple had been married for some time, and Shelley Cowell had grown unhappy with what was becoming an abusive and controlling relationship. The family said they could only really visit her when he was at work, or even talk to the phone with her when he was at work. And so the couple split up. They decided to sell their home. This is in Woodstock, and she was told by Christopher Cowell that she should go over there to clean it to get ready for sale. So she agreed because he wouldn't be there, except he was there. The family said that he was waiting, that he had been preparing for days. He hid his car so she wouldn't see it. He blackened out the windows. He also tied a rope to a support post in the basement. Anyway, he confronted her. She got into the basement. He handcuffed her. He hit her with a hammer, beat her with a metal rod, stabbed her 19 times with a fillet knife, and slit her throat so badly it nearly decapitated her. It's a gruesome crime, one that the sentencing judge called brutal and vicious, and said that the photographs stand as mute testimony to the horrifying manner in which she died. And what the families found out recently, they looked into it because of this uproar over Terri-Lynne McClintock, is that Christopher Cowell is in a minimum security institution in BC with no walls, no fences, and what's more, he's getting day passes so that he can visit his new wife and his young daughter. And the wife, the parole board says, is a former prison worker. And this is the problem, because the family says that this is a grave injustice, because Cowell, living the way he is and getting to start a family, that's not the punishment he deserves.
If he can commit a crime like he did and be in minimum security, what do you have to do to qualify to stay in maximum security prison? We don't have my sister. My dad doesn't have his daughter. He gets to see his daughter. He gets the opportunity to create a family. Shelley doesn't get that.
What are they hoping to see happen?
Well, they want change. I mean, the reason this happened was 17 years ago when Christopher Cowell was put away. They never filled out a form, and this is the victim registration form with the Parole Board of Canada. It's something that they think that all families should fill out. You have the option of doing it or not, but if no one tells you about it, you don't know about it. So they want the federal government to make it mandatory so that the families of all murder victims have to fill out this form. If they want updates on their loved one's killer, they have to check yes. If they don't want updates on their loved one's killer, they have to check no. But either way, they should have to fill it out. And you know, they put out this plea, and it's gotten a lot of traction. A lot of people are reacting to this story. And we put it to the Public Safety Minister's office, which got back to us. And they don't promise much change coming. They say that they're committed to releasing offenders gradually into the community, and that they don't do it without supervision. They also say they're creating an online victims portal so that victims can get information quicker and easier. But the only thing they really promise is some measures in Bill C-83 to increase victims' access to audio recordings of these parole hearings.
Okay, thank you so much, Colin. That's Colin Butler in London, Ontario. So is there reason for concern when it comes to how and where convicted killers are serving their sentences? Mary Campbell is a former Director General of Criminal Justice with Public Safety Canada. Hi, Ms. Campbell. Nice to see you again. Thanks for being here. I guess I'll start by just acknowledging the sort of emotional and sensitive nature of you know, something like that. Those details are really hard to listen to. Let me start off with this case because I do want to ask you about healing lodges as well. In this instance, how unusual is it unusual that this person would have been transferred to a minimum security?
Not at all. not at all. There are a great many people serving life sentences who do make their way down to minimum security. You know, there's a lot to unpack there, and a lot of it is emotional, and who doesn't feel for the family terribly? We, in the system, look at everyone in terms of what treatment do they need, what is their risk, and I know it's hard for outsiders to understand sometimes that the fact that someone has committed a terrible crime doesn't necessarily mean that they're a big risk to commit another one. And that seems—
Is that the primary factor that you're using to judge what type of, you know, institution?
No, there's much more to the risk assessment. And again, you know, I don't know much about nuclear physics. I would have a hard time explaining that. So it's natural for people to ask questions. How does this work? Really, in risk assessment, there are a couple of big factors in terms of max, medium, and minimum, and that is how likely are you to escape? Are you an escape risk? And what might you do if you escaped? Now, someone might be a high risk to escape, but they're likely to write a few bad checks, you know, not the kind of violence that's going to necessarily upset a community. So you have to look at both of those things together and make an assessment.
Is there ever any, I mean, when you're making that assessment, is it just based on the sort of here and now, or is there, I think why people have a hard time understanding it is because you hear the severity of that crime and what he was convicted of and the circumstances of it, and then you think, well, how could anything kind of play off against that? How could anything dilute the impact of that? So when the assessment is being made, is that a factor as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're going to look at a number of things that we know are predictive of future behavior. And there is a science behind this. And I don't expect the average person to know about all of this. So there's a bit of a science, and the type of crime you committed is certainly a major factor, but it's not the only one. And I guess it comes down to, in part, a bit of a difference in ideology. Some people really want the system to punish, and that is it. And I understand that. I get it. But there's another school of thought, which is, what can we do to make this situation not happen again? What can we do to return the actor to some state of being able to live in the community? And not all of them will be able to, but that's their mandate. That's their lawful mandate, is to fulfill the sentence and try to bring some treatment to bear on the person. Some people will need maximum security for a very long time, and we could probably all name a few names. But you know, there are 24,000 other people in the system. They don't all need to be in max. It's like going to the hospital tonight. You don't put everyone in ICU. You know, you do a triage, you do an assessment based on some science. People who need the most treatment, need the most security, are going to be in the sort of highest, most expensive, most intensive setting. And others who don't need that will be cascaded down. Very few people go to minimum immediately. I don't think that's happened for a long time.
Let me ask you about the healing lodges and the issue there, because the last time we had you on, of course, we've been talking about this review that the government was conducting. In the end, they decided to tighten the rules, change the rules over sort of the conditions under which someone could be transferred to one. And the end result was that Terri-Lynne McClintock was transferred back to a traditional prison. What's your take? What do you think about what the government did?
I'm sad about it, frankly, because I don't think that's helping public safety at all. And again, there's a lack of some knowledge and communication. She's not put back behind bars. She's not behind bars. She is allegedly medium security, and there are no bars. The women live in what are called a townhouse model of accommodation. So it's nothing fancy, but it's a townhouse, kitchen and living room on the ground floor, 4 bedrooms, bathroom upstairs. And the idea is to help a lot of these women live pro-socially and productively, and even manage a food budget and not punch the woman next to them if they're mad at them, but find some other way of dealing with conflict. So as a medium security person, she would be going back into that setting. So there are no bars that she's in. Yes, there's a fence around the penitentiary. Do you know how many escapes there were from the entire system last year? Or 2016-17, which is the most recent year. There are a grand total of 8 escapes out of all the thousands and thousands of prisoners. So I think this notion that somehow people are a big escape risk is not well-founded.
Maybe I think the notion was, though, also, and maybe you can clear this up, that somebody, again, who had committed such a heinous crime would be living somewhere where the conditions are not as harsh, maybe less restrictive, more comfortable, and people were uneasy with that. Tell me a bit about what would be happening in that healing lodge.
Well, I would have to say, you know, anyone who spent a week or a year in a prison will not tell you that it's comfortable or pleasant. It's nothing like that at all. It's basic human decency is the standard, nothing luxurious. And the whole point, again, is to try to work with the person. Now you say, well, no, this person shouldn't get a healing lodge experience only 8 years into the sentence. Well, guess what? Science tells us if you go to the hospital, they don't say, gosh, you don't really need your broken leg fixed. You know, come back in a year and we'll see how it's going. Sometimes the best time to reach the person is right away at the beginning of the sentence, before they kind of develop a self-narrative that's, you know, maybe exculpatory and they're not interested in any kind of therapy. If a prisoner shows an interest right from the beginning in getting some help, shouldn't we be helping them? So instead of doing that therapy in a healing lodge every day with people around her, she's in Edmonton. Her day job is quite likely to be sweeping the floors, nothing productive. She's not learning a trade. And she doesn't have to take any therapy if she doesn't want to. So how does that make us better, you know?
Do you, I guess though, is it hard to sort of bridge the gap between people who, like you sort of identified, you know, people who hear the nature of the crime and just think, you should be punished for this. And I don't care if you're rehabilitated or not. I maybe even don't believe that you can be. Acknowledging that the science will tell you, you know, that the public perception is there. And is there something that should be done in order to, you know, better communicate things so that that gap doesn't continue to widen, as we've seen with this case just now and the McClintock case?
I think that's hugely important, frankly, is communicating, just basic communication. And that's where things do fall down sometimes. You know, we can do punishment, Vashi. We did it in the 1800s, and we were great at it. We had, you know, ball and chain, Oregon boot. We had the high-power water hose. We had, you know, in a stockade, you know. We know how to do punishment. But now it's, you know, the 21st century, and we know how to do things a lot better. We don't treat people medically the way we did in the 1800s. So part of it, and I just want to touch on that part about, you know, victims should just be proactively notified. The reason why the law is the way it is because we talked to a lot of victims and they did not want any further involvement. They did not want to be contacted. So can we do a better job of reaching out to the ones who do? Yeah, I would say so. But you've got to bear in mind there's a whole lot that just want to put this behind them and move on.
Okay, I'm out of time. Unfortunately, I have to leave it there. But thank you very much for your insight, Ms. Campbell.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate your time.